Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone. Today we are going to do the last class for this semester on Patisambhida Magga. And we have arrived at the 11th Ñāna, which talks about the supramundane path, which eradicates defilements and makes us to emerge from the suffering. And if you recap what we have done so far till now, we discussed in the beginning what is Suthamaya Nana, knowledge gained through listening to the dhamma. And these days we can also obtain or garner the dhamma through reading as well. But still, the knowledge that is gained from external sources is called Suthamaya Nana. But for the Buddhas and Pacceka Buddhas, the same wisdom can be attained through their inner contemplation, through their wise reflection, and that would still suffice as Suthamaya Nana, because later we will study that Suthamaya Nana has a specific scope, and knowing that the knowledge on those areas is called the Suthamaya. It suffices to be the Suthamaya Nana, and it doesn't need to be exactly taken from the ear only. And then the one who has Suthamaya Nana, the knowledge about things that should be known, especially with regard to the karma and its vipaka, and also how the samsara is functioning, and how to eradicate the defilements, and also specifically how the practice should be done. And one who has gained wisdom based on that knowledge, develops or adopts this wisdom into his day-to-day practical life, and that entrance, the first entrance to the practice, is marked by observing or adapting a sila or a virtuous life, and one tries to live under a certain conduct, and the wisdom that is involved in while practicing or living, abiding with the moral conduct or the precepts is called Silamaya Ñāna. And then based on sila, one develops concentration and focuses on a specific object or a range of objects, and develop the capacity to be not to be distracted, and to be well focused on certain objects, and the wisdom that is associating those access and absorption concentration is called Samadhi Bhavanamaya Nana. And then based on the Samadhi Bhavana, as a Buddhist, a follower of the Buddha, one would try to discern Nama and Rupa as two different entities, and get rid of the wrong view that they are one thing or a self, and that is Nama Rupa Bhavattahana Ñāna, determining and concluding that there is no self other than the Nama and Rupa, and that wisdom is kept in this list of Ñāna's knowledges, and then we move on to the wisdom which discerns or understands or comprehends the causes of this Nama and Rupa. So when Nama and Rupa's causes of Nama and Rupa is understood, the Nama and Rupa is also understood, because without knowing what Nama and Rupa are, one would not be able to know its causes. So the fourth wisdom is Pacche Pariggahe Ñānam, wisdom involved in knowing, determining the causes of the conditioned realities. Then those conditioned realities that are made or happen to arise, or happen to be arisen, or happen to arise due to causes, is categorized into various groups and collectively contemplated as impermanent, suffering and non-self by the wisdom which we call Samma Nana. And then after Samma Nana, those realities that were captured by the Samma Sambuddha Ñāna, specifically the Pachchuppanna ones that we, not the present moment ones, the ones that are neither past nor future, and capturing those realities that we have categorized and see their rising and falling, seeing their, that's called Udayabhaya Ñāna, seeing that which are the phenomena or the dhammatas, how they behave, seeing the rising and falling, and also contemplating them as anicca, dukkha, and another impermanent suffering and non-self, which is the Udayabhaya Ñāna. Then afterwards, when the yogi keeps on observing the rising and falling, automatically his mind drifts towards the vanishing, because the intention is to see the impermanence, so mind automatically goes towards the vanishing side of the reality. And then as an extra contemplation, having seen the reality vanish, one is supposed to contemplate or see the vanishing of the wisdom which saw this. Arammanam patisankha bhanganupassane panya vipassane ñāna. Having known the reality, it's passing away, one is supposed to observe the passing away of the wisdom itself, with another wisdom actually. Then, if there's no reflexive awareness, it should be done by another consciousness or a wisdom. Then, following this, when one sees that everything passes away, and also the knower, the wisdom, is also passing away, unlike in Vedantas, which says that the knower is sort of is the self, which is apart from nama and rupa, and which is a part of the Brahman. Buddha was against the Upanishad teachings. Buddha had completely preached something completely different, and said that the wisdom, the knower, is also passing away. It's not that the knower is a Brahman or a permanent soul or a universal soul out of which everything has emerged. So then knowing that the realities are also passing away, and also the observing consciousness and the wisdom is also passing away, the yogi starts to understand that everything in the world is impermanent, and they are unsatisfactory, and they are never, like, you can never have a permanent satisfaction gaining them, because there's no way, everything passes away instantly. And this would lead to a sense of fear, associated with wisdom actually, which we call Bhayatupaṭṭhāna Ñāna. And this Bhayatupaṭṭhāna Ñāna leads to see the dangers, further dangers of the conditioned realities, especially that there is no protection, for these conditions, and there's no remedy, and there's no way that we can stop this vanishing of these conditioned reality. And that would lead to the dispassion, and also which is called like being disappointed about the sankharas, and getting like suppressing the passion or liking towards the sankharas, and he starts to dislike the sankharas, not with anger but with wisdom, which we call the nibbida ñāna. And these three wisdoms are collectively called Bhayatupaṭṭhāne paññā ādīnave ñāna, seeing the sankharas as dangerous and seeing their disadvantages. The outcome would be nibbida, dispassion. Then one needs to, with this dispassion, one gets the urge to get out of samsara, to get out of these conditioned realities, to be free from these conditioned realities, because one needs to understand that from Bhayatupaṭṭhāna, Bhanganupassana, one sees because all the preliminary work was done, knowing the nama and rupa, their conditions, and also knowing their universal characteristics, one would see two aspects of the conditioned realities. That's very important. So from Bhayatupaṭṭhāna Ñāna onwards, the entire existence, it can be put into two categories. That is nimitta and pavatta. Pavatta is the existence. Nimitta are the objects that are taken by the mind. Now, when the mind process is going on, this is samsara, we exist, every mind takes a certain object, which is a conditioned reality, sankhara. So one can argue, aren't there paññatti objects? Yes, obviously there are, but paññattis are depending on the sankharas. You cannot have pure paññatti like without sankharas, because paññattis are dependent. Unless except the paññatti of absence of nothing, but still it is attached to something, because we talk about the nothingness of a sound. Sound is a conditioned reality, and nothingness of the sound is, though it is considered as a paññatti, it also has some sort of a relationship with the conditioned realities. So therefore paññattis are also exaggerating the conditioned realities. So in general we would say, and defilements are mainly on the conditioned realities. For example, take a burger, for instance. Some people like burgers, and they like burger. It's not. They are not liking the idea of burger. They like the taste of the burger, the feel that it gives. Maybe if think about a bed, for instance, the comfort it gives, the way it looks. So all these are conditioned realities. The color, the touch, and all this stuff. So idea of bed, yes, it's also attractive in one sense, but the real satisfaction or the happiness, the pleasure is derived from the conditioned realities. So therefore, defilements are lying upon or are based on these conditioned realities, not the concepts, not the concepts. So therefore what matters in vipassana meditation is to observe the conditioned realities as impermanent, suffering and non-self, not the concepts. And we have to overcome the concepts, because concepts would conceal these conditioned realities and make us to consider them as something else other than nama, and rather than knowing them as nama and rupa, they would be known as a self. So concept is something that we have to overcome. Conditioned realities are some things that we have to understand thoroughly. Their true natures should be understood. So now sankharas are taken as objects, and pavatta is the existence. Existence is the nama and rupa process going on. And now think about our lives. We can easily note down or understand these two aspects. Our life continues. Even though we are not paying much attention to that, the life continues while we are sleeping, or while we are doing whatever activities, or whether we are not focused on our attention is somewhere else, but still it's continuing, and it would keep on continuing even after death. Why is that? Because we have latent defilements, uneradicated, defilements that are not eradicated. So due to the defilement, so in this pavatta existence, the most fundamental of this existence, or the main cause of this existence, or the seed of existence, or otherwise you can call the root of existence, are the defilements. Defilements. And defilements are twofold. There are two categories of defilements. One which is called anusaya, which are the main component of the defilements, and the remaining defilements, the appahina kilesas, defilements that are not eradicated. So we can categorize them into two groups, and there is another layer called vasana, which is not necessarily to be eradicated by Sawakas or Pacceka Buddhas. Only a person who wants to read the omniscience would eradicate that, and that would give him the capacity to know everything as he likes or wishes. Now, so due to defilement, this pavatta continues, and is a very important aspect of this pavatta is the khandhas, the conditioned. These are the conditioned realities, and for example, okay, this is the moment now. Then some conditioned realities would happen, rather than saying in future they are supposed to arise. Yeah, one can say they will arise in the future. So some conditioned realities are supposed to arise, because as long as the defilements are there, it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of time of dying. one would get the khandhas again. And all these, and in the past it had been there. So these are the conditioned realities. So in the vipassana wisdom of Bhaitopatthana Ñāna, one understands that the conditioned realities existed in the past, and now we are experiencing these conditioned realities, and they are going to come. These are the anupanna realities. So this entire thing is the pavatta existence. So we are not supposed to only to focus on the present moment in vipassana. So that's why it's very vital that vipassana is not about present moment. It's not about present moment. It's about understanding the whole existence, understanding this whole process, and focusing. You can do vipassana focusing on this present moment. Some would be able to gain that holistic idea, but it's actually having a complete view about the entire existence, including the possible existence of the extracelestial lives as well, including Brahmas, Devas and so forth, because you can generalize. If Nama and Rupa is happening in this way, the same would happen even I was born. I were to born as a deity or a Brahma. So even the hells and so forth. So it's very vital that the vipassana wisdom has to be extended into these all arenas. Now, he considers the Bhaitopatthana comes. Why the Bhaitopatthana arises? Now, consider this. Now, it's not that he is afraid that every consciousness or every reality passes away whenever he observes. The thing is, he knows, he gets to understand that if that is the case, if every reality is passing away, even I were to be born in a blissful existence, a so-called blissful existence, or in a very long life with a long lifespan or longevity, but still, even on those existence, the vanishing of nama rupas is inevitable. You cannot avoid it, and eventually we would die and lose those status and get deprived of those pleasures. So it's impossible. It's no possibility, no way of stopping it. So that's how the fear, it's not a fear of anger, it's not an unwholesome fear, knowing that these are not to be grasped or not to be admired. This is not a path to be walked upon. It's not that I am supposed to gain, to be born as a deity or to born as a Brahma, to be born as a king. That's not the process here, because that is a path leading towards all this suffering. The entire existence is full of suffering. The reason for this suffering is the vanishing of the reality, instant vanishing of the realities. They don't last for a long time. So with the Bhaitopatthana, after Banghanupassana, when you enter the Bhaitopatthana Ñāna, one understands this entire process, pavatta, as full of suffering. And also, these sankharas that are cognized by the mind are also rising and falling. And he knows all the sankhara, the conditioned realities, they instantly vanish, they rise and fall. The pavatta, due to this impermanent characteristic of impermanent, nature of impermanence, this existence is full of suffering. And both the external and the internal. This is the internal aspect, our life and the objects that we are taking. Maybe our house or beloved ones, or the taste that we experience while we are eating, or the touches that we gain, the music that we are listening, whatever objects that we encounter, that we are associating, or that we are enjoying, or that we cognize or know, whatever word we use. So they all are impermanent realities. They are not permanent. So even the existence is full of problems, and also whether we are focusing on our own body or own consciousness or any other someone else's nama rupa or some inanimate thing, everything is marked by the characteristic of impermanence. They are all conditioned realities. We are stuck in a conditioned world actually. Our existence itself is conditioned realities which have the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self. And also, whatever object that we take, would not satisfy us fully because they are also impermanent, suffering and non-self. So now, that's why the Bhayatupatthana arises. Now he sees that everything in the world, even his own existence, and the external and the internal objects. So here external doesn't mean it has to be, no, nimitta is the objects that we take. They don't need to be something externally. Even we are focusing on our own body, that becomes a nimitta at that moment. And existence is this continuation of nama and rupa. So he sees the danger in it, of the objects, and in the objects and also in the pavatta, the existence, and he sees that there's no way to stop the vanishing of these realities, and he becomes dispassionate about both the pavatta and the nimitta. Then he wants to get rid of this, get rid of the nimitta and of the pavatta, which we call the munchitu kamyatha ñāna. And then he starts exerting effort, more effort in vipassana meditation. There's nothing new to be done. What has to be done is to contemplate the conditioned realities as impermanent, suffering and non-self. And that's called patisankha. Munchitu kamyata patisankhanupassana. Santitthana, when he keeps on knowing, seeing, observing, contemplating the true natures of the reality, especially with much attention to the non-selfness, the mind comes to an equanimous state. Santitthana, equanimous state. And that's the time the mind is fully detached from the sankharas. It goes away from the sankharas. It rolls away from the sankharas. And also, but at the same time, that the stressful feeling, it's not nibbida is not stressful in it, but compared to the sankharupekka, it had some emotional aspect, emotional flavor in it. And that flavor is the outcome of the asmimana, or that was latent and haunting our mind process. Right? But by why we became afraid of the sankharas, because if I were to be born on those realms, if I were to be born on a realm, they are impermanent, the nature of impermanence is dominant, which cannot be prevented by any means. So it's always attached to the idea of I. And that idea of I is fully suppressed by the patisankhanupassana, the vigorous meditation, contemplation, which focuses more on the non-selfness. And still, he doesn't get attached to it. He is not comfortable with the sankharas. He is equanimous, but at the same time, he fully detaches from them. So he is rolling away from the sankharas, like a flower which withers when put under the sun. So it completely goes away from the sankhara. And that sankharupekka ñāna is called vivatthanupassana, because it rolls away from the sankharas. And then that would be followed by anuloma ñāna, which is a very strong wisdom that is capable of producing the breakthrough, and which we discussed about. Then at the gotrabhu ñāna, what happens is, now he, in the sankharupekka ñāna, is detached from the nimitta and the pavatta as well. Now, the breakthrough happens when the gotrabhu ñāna, for the first time, goes beyond the sankhara nimittas, emerges from it. Emerging from sankhara nimitta means abandoning the sankhara. It abandons the sankhara nimitta and takes a new object which is in a different arena, or rather than saying a realm, different arena or different scope, or it's completely beyond the sankharas. And the mind is directed towards that new object, which is existing actually. So there are two layers only, the layer of sankharas and the nibbana. And if you go beyond the sankharas, if you abandon the sankharas, and the mind goes to this existing object, which is called nibbana, and that's the first emergence. That's called emerging from the external, because external are the objects. Pavatta is the internal. This is the internal, and this is the external. Among the internal, the defilements are the innermost realities. They are the cause of this existence, and they are connected with some khandhas that are supposed to arise. So one cannot emerge from the khandhas that one is having at the moment. Like for example, you cannot emerge or get rid of the rupa that you are possessing, because it was a result of the past karma. of the present life rebirth, which was produced by the past karma and defilements. So we are unable to get rid of all the aggregates that we are having. We are getting rid of the unwholesome aggregates and anything that is related to that. Any khanda that is supposed to arise due to these unwholesome aggregates, we get rid of that. So that's the emergence from the internal. That's the emergence from the internal. External emergence is we abandon the sankharas and focuses on nibbana. So Gotrabhu Ñāna abandon the external object, external part, it means the sankharas, and it focused on the nibbana, but it does not eradicate defilements. It does not eradicate. But you have to understand that it lessens the defilements. Lessening of defilements starts from Banganupassana. According to Visuddhimagga commentary, starting from the strong Udaya Abhayana. And it continues till the Gotrabhu Ñāna. Gotrabhu lessens the defilements. It's a very strong wisdom. The entire Anuloma Ñāna, Parikama, Upachara, Anuloma and Gotrabhu, they all lessen the defilements, they weakens the defilements. And then, but still it doesn't eradicate. So one doesn't emerge from the pavatta, but one emerges from sankhara because he's focusing on nibbana. Focusing on nibbana. So if we make the diagram more clear, for instance, if this is the Gotrabhu level and this is the Magga Ñāna. So in these previous consciousnesses, he was taking the person was taking sankharas as the object, and then suddenly Gotrabhu takes nibbana as the object. But still, now he has emerged from the external thing, Bahidda Vuttana, because he has abandoned the sankharas and come into the taken nibbana as the object. Now, in order to emerge from the pavatta, so pavatta emergence means you are not stopping the process which is happening at the moment. What we can stop is the process that is about to come. If there is a cause and a result would follow the cause, we can get rid of the result by removing the cause. And that has to be done before the result is produced. After it has produced, the result would automatically, naturally would end. That's what is happening in this life. Since the defilements existed in the previous life, with the help of karma, they produce certain aggregates. Now you cannot prevent it. It has to end by its own, in its own. So at the death, it only prevents at the death. So you cannot get rid of. Otherwise, you have to. One has to destroy oneself. That's not getting rid of something. You can say it's getting rid of something, but it cannot be. One cannot escape that. One has to live this life. If the aggregates, when the aggregates were obtained, we have to continue this. So escape or emancipation, liberation, freedom happens before the suffering comes. So what we are supposed to do is to get rid of the suffering that would happen. And also in this life, the person would not be able to entirely get rid of the suffering that is supposed to come. Certain suffering, yes, the suffering of defilements, suffering of unwholesome, mind-born matter of unwholesome mentalities. Yes, those things we can get rid of, but not the utuja rupas, not the ahada, not the matter, not the kammaja rupas, not the vipaka chitta chetasikas, not the minds such as the pure minds, wholesome. It's not, rather, if one becomes arahant, it doesn't become wholesome, but it's sobana chittas are there, the pure minds. So we are not able to get rid of those things. Only the defiled minds and also the chittaja rupas that are associated in those defiled minds. We can get rid of that. But the aggregates that are supposed to arise in the future lives, one would get freed from them. By becoming a Sotapanna, one becomes free from the aggregates beyond the 7 lives in the karma realm. By becoming Sakadagami, he becomes free from lives beyond 2 lives in the karma realm. In Anagami, one becomes Amaragami, he becomes free from all the lives in the karma realm, the sensual realm. But by becoming an Arahant, he becomes freed from all the Brahma lives. So now, by eradicating that, we emerges from the pavatta. And Gotrabhu Ñāna emerged from the sankharas and focused on Nibbana. Then the Magga Ñāna would follow that, do the same thing, focuses on Nibbana. At the same time, it eradicates. So it also emerges from the external and it eradicates the defilements. So with the eradication of defilements, the aggregates that are supposed to arise would vanish before they are arising. So that's an emergence. This is the emergence from the Pavatta. He's free from the existence that was supposed to arise. So Magga Ñāna emerges from both sides, from the Pavatta and also from the Nimitta. Gotrabhu emerges only from the Nimitta. It abandons the Sankhara and focuses on Nibbana, but it is unable to cut the defilements, which is the cause of the Pavatta. So yogi doesn't emerge from the Pavatta with the Gotrabhu wisdom. So that's what is said. Magga Ñāna, Dubhatho Vuttana is a dual emergence. So dual emergence. So that's what the wisdom is. So by attaining this, one becomes free from the suffering that is to come, and also he would be born only if he's a lower noble. He will be born only in pleasant good realms and finally attain the final liberation. So this wisdom which emerges, so from the Bhayatupatthana Ñāna, one sees the world in two aspects: the existence and the objects that he is taking, and he sees them as dangerous, and he sees there's no way to stop the suffering and the passing away of the realities pertaining to the external and the internal, the existence and the objects, and then he becomes dispassionate towards them, the both dual aspects, the objects and also his own existence. These are two main aspects. Consider like this: our life is continuing and we are taking objects. Whatever experience we are having, even about our children, even about our career, whatever achievement that we have done, they are all gained through this consciousness. This is just an experience that we are having. Even what we are doing is, even you are listening to Dhamma, you are getting a conscious experience. While I'm teaching, even I'm preaching something, having thought with the consciousness. So every activity that we do can be focused or can be reduced to the function of consciousness. At the same time, because consciousness is associated with an object, so taking objects, and all these objects are conditioned realities. Even panyatis are related to conditioned realities. So what we are cognizing, we are dealing with conditioned realities all the time through this cognition, mental cognition. At the same time, whether we focus or not, our existence happens to continue due to causes. The continuation in this life, yes, it's continuing, and especially the continuation is emphasized on how it continues after life. It doesn't stop. If things stops at the death, then it would be a perfect thing. Like perfect means there's no issue. So that some would really be afraid of a non-life after a death. That would be a dreadful thing for some people, and for some would enjoy that. Some would consider that's fine because they don't want to go into another life. But it doesn't happen, because as long as the causes are there, life would continue. Continue means Nama Rupa would continue, and so some, it's a dreadful thing. So, but if Nama Rupa is suffering, in reality, technically speaking, if Nama Rupas are to stop at the death, that would be fine. That would be perfect for us. For the ones who are seeking for a liberation, but it doesn't happen so. That's the point. Since Namarupas continue due to the causes after death, since it continues after death, therefore there is a huge problem here. So external, now objects are taken. I hope you understand what I meant here. So consciousness is taking objects, and that's called living, having an experience, and the Namarupa process continues. Even in the Asanya Satta, there is no nimitta, but the Pavatta exists. Pavatta is there. Arupa realm, nimitta and Pavatta both is happening, because the Bhavanga and the mind processes are continuing while taking new objects. All the existences except Asanya Satta, Pavatta and nimitta both is happening. In the Asanya Satta, only Pavatta is continuing. So both these dual aspects are dreadful, something to be afraid of, and it's full of dangers, full of defects disadvantages, adversities. So it's not something to be attached to. So one becomes dispassionate. Nibbida arises. Would feel disappointed with these sankharas, these existence and the observations, the objects that we cognize. Then one needs to get out of this. He doesn't want to even to, one who has gone to that level doesn't want to take sankharas as object, because he sees now all the sankharas are full of suffering, impermanent suffering and non-self. So even taking a sankhara would be a stressful thing. And then this continuation of sankharas in the existence is also something stressful and not something pleasant. So he wants to get rid of this sankhara world as in sankharas which are objects, and also the sankharas which are part of one's life. External sankharas, you cannot continue to destroy them. So you want the mind to be apart from these sankharas. And internal existence, we want to stop it. That's the point. And that urge, munchitu kamyata, due to that urge, one starts meditating vigorously. That's called patisankhanupassana. So when vigorous meditation comes, he comes into equanimous state and he becomes fully detached from the sankharas, and the mind is very stable, unlike in the level of dispassion or the nibbida, and mind is very stable, but it fully detaches from the sankhara, and it starts to move away. And when the indriyas or the faculties have come into the maturity, at one stage, what happens? The mind abandons the sankhara, the objects of sankharas, and it takes nibbana as the object. And still, pavatta is not eradicated. Pavatta is, one doesn't emerge from the parapavatta. And the next mind takes nibbana as the object. He's emerging from the external or from the nimitta. At the same time, he eradicates the cause of this pavatta. And then he emerges from the pavatta. And that is the wisdom. And then the next wisdom, which I have to discuss next semester, unfortunately. So in the next semester. So after this is done, the work is done. So Pala Ñāna would arise, taking nibbana as the object. There's nothing to eradicate, nothing to be eradicated, because Magga Ñāna has done it. Even at the Sotapanna level, it did what it's supposed to do, what it can do, and then this cause is done. One becomes Sotapanna, is one cause. So cause is done. When you have done your exams, when you have done your work, you rest. So the mind rests. Payoga patipassadi. The energy, the effort that one has been putting so forth comes into a stall, like it stops. A stale level. So it stops, and then to be followed by another palachitta. It's called payoga patipassadi. So I have no experience on this. So it seems like the effort that he has been putting so forth, and the emergence is happening. Imagine like you're going through the gravitational force of something, the entire universe, in the earth. To get rid of that, you have to have a strong force. Immediately after you get rid of that, yes, you don't need that force anymore. So likewise, the breakthrough happens. Nibbana is taken as an object. So externally we emerge, and internally defilements are removed, and we emerge from the suffering. Now it's done. This is the moment. This is the real moment. The Magga, the emergence happens. Now there's nothing to be done. So it comes into a very calm, stable state. And Palachitta is such a mind that becomes, that's a appeasement is there. Appeasing the mind stream from the defilement, because if the defilements were like a fire, Maggachitta extinguishes it, and Pala is like throwing some water onto that surface and making it cooler. In the other way, the effort reached its culmination. The most effortful consciousness is the Maggachitta. It is the one which has the greatest energy, so it could destroy all the defilements. And one is capable of making this breakthrough from the Sankhara world. And then what happens? The energy, everything appeases, calms down, and the mind comes into a very stable state. And another interesting point is this Palachitta is an outcome of the Magga. That's the strength of the Magga. It's so powerful, it's capable of producing its result immediately. And that Palachitta signifies or marks the finishing or the ending of a great cause. And that's called Payoga Patipassadi Panya. And the wisdom takes the Nibbana as an object, and it's a different experience one would get. Gotrabhu as a different experience, Magga one would get different, and Palachitta would be a very specific different experience, which calms down. Calms down means which appeases one's great effort and also cools down the mind stream. Right? So this is the very interesting 3 wisdoms, and I hope I was able to derive properly. And I shall read the handout and conclude the lecture. Here, Dubato Utthana Vivattane Panya Magge Ñāna. Here, Dubato means from both sides. Dubatoti Ubato Dvayatoti Va Uttang Hoti. As it was mentioned under the previous wisdom, internal is the unwholesome aggregates found in the internal mind process. In comparison to these internal aggregates, all conditioned realities that are cognized by the mind are considered external. This is the wisdom that emerges from both internal and external sides. Actually, Gotrabhu had already emerged from the external, but still we say Magga too emerges from the external. Emergence from the internal happens by eradicating the defilements. By doing so, one emerges from defilements and all the aggregates that would arise due to those defilements. On the other hand, emergence from external happens by cognizing the Nibbana. By doing so, the yogi emerges from conditioned realities. When yogi emerges from internal and external, he or she turns away from the internal and external. That means, that's called vivattana. That means the yogi faces away from internal and external conditioned realities, facing the Nibbana, which is called vivattana. Emergence is vuttana, vivattana is facing other way. It's going through it. It's going beyond the sankhara world. Going beyond the sankhara world. So that's why it's called lokuttara. You are emerging from the world. What is this world? Conditioned world. Conditioned is twofold. The objects that we are taking and also our existence. So lokuttara means coming out of this conditioned world. So now that's how the lokuttara word it makes sense. Because the world is our own existence and also the realities that we cognize. So from those realities we emerge by focusing on Nibbana, and from the world, internal world, we emerge by removing the causes that would reproduce the internal world after death. So that's called going beyond the world, lokuttara. Right? So the wisdom involved in this dual emergence is called dubato vuttana vivattane panya. It has been stated in Visuddhi Magga that the Magga Ñāna, supramundane path wisdom, emerges from conditioned realities which have signs by cognizing the signless Nibbana, the unconditioned reality, and emerges from the existence by eradicating the cause of suffering, that is to say defilements. Therefore, Magga Ñānas are called Dubato Vuttana. Therefore, the wisdom involved in this dual emergence is the Magga Ñāna. Dubato Vuttana Vivattane Panya, Dubat Magge Ñāna. That wisdom involved in this dual emergence is the Magga Ñāna. Path wisdom is called Magge Ñāna as follows. The noble path is called Magga for 3 reasons. Since it looks at Nibbana, Nibbanang Maggati Pekkatiti Maggo. Since it is searched by the ones who are in need of Nibbana, Nibbanati Kehi Maggiyati Anvesiyatiti Maggo. And since it exists, destroying the defilements. Kilese Maranto Gachatiti Pavattatiti Maggo. The wisdom that arises in that Magga is called Magga. It means it is associated in the Eightfold Noble Path, in that path. So that's called Magga Ñāna. This is the wisdom that we are searching, and we are desperate to attain one day and to get rid of the sankhara. So even if someone has not developed the wisdom to this vipassana levels, one should always consider this wisdom. That's why this wisdom is so nice, that learnedness. You have to consider sometimes. the existence of Nama and Rupa, the Pavatta, and all the conditioned realities that we cognize. So what we are supposed to do is to get rid of these both dual aspects in our life, the existence and the conditioned realities. So, this wisdom is vital, and that is done by the Magga Ñāna, followed by the Gotrabhu Ñāna. So I conclude the lecture. I hope you enjoyed it, and also the sessions that we did throughout the whole semester. And sometimes I was unable to continue properly, but we did somewhat a few lessons, as maybe around 10 lessons throughout the process, or maybe 8 something. So hopefully next semester we'll be able to continue all the weeks, and see you next week and next semester. Okay, it's up now. It's time to conclude the lectures for this semester, and I hope everyone enjoyed the lectures. And next semester, hopefully we'll be able to continue from the place where we stopped, especially the Pala Ñāna, Payoga Patipassaddhi Paññā, Pali Ñāna, Payoga Patipassaddhi Ñāna. So hope you all the best, and may all these merits helps us to attain the final liberation, and also for the longevity of the Buddha Sasana. Buddha Sasanam Chirantittatu, Buddha Sasanam Chirantittatu, Buddha Sasanam Chirantittatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.